Wonderful. Or not. There we go. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Kairi Thomas-Brooks, and welcome back to another live show of 21 Questions. I am an aspiring civil rights lawyer. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm an advisor to this amazing initiative called Hey Blue. Hey Blue has been facilitating meaningful connections between police officers and community members for 2 years now. Here on our show, 21 Questions, I bring officers on from around the nation to sit down and have talks with them about what's going on in today's society. I'll be able to ask the officer 10 questions. The officer will be able to ask me 10 questions, and our 21st question will come from the audience. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our next officer, Officer Bookem from the NYPD. Officer Bookem, are you there?
Hey, what's going on, Kairi? What's going on?
Nothing much. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Thanks to Hey Blue for having me. It's a great honor. But I'm not from NYPD. I'm a cop in New Jersey. But shout to NYPD though.
Oh, I don't know.
It's all right.
Okay.
It's all right.
Funny because I've got friends who from New York, right? And I'll say, well, New York and New Jersey are the same thing. And they'll go, what? So I'm sorry.
No problem. Don't be sorry. It's cool. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So Officer Bookem, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I am an officer in New Jersey. I've been an officer now for 15 years. I work in the patrol division. I'm heavily involved with the community. I have a nonprofit that's called the Bridges Project. I'm also a rapper, so I use rap music as a conduit to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. Obviously, it's positive rap, no cursing, no negativity involved in my raps. I'm just just to give you a little more, Latino, Puerto Rican. I'm of Puerto Rican descent. Was born and raised in Hudson County, New Jersey, Bayonne, New Jersey, to be exact. I'm a father of 3 young ladies. I'm married and married for 13 years now.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So, officer, if you're ready for your first question. And you said you had all daughters, yes?
Yes, 3 girls.
How do you like that? It's handful, yes?
Yes. It's a blessing though. So I've been told that girls stay with their dads when their dads get old and decrepit. So I got some, I'm looking forward to that.
That's good. Okay. So my first question to you, officer, would be, what made you want to become an officer in the first place?
So I want to say it struck me to become an officer probably around the age of 10 years old. We used to have a hometown fair in Bayonne, New Jersey, where, the cops were, prevalent force there. They would come out, heavy community policing atmosphere there. So there was a cop there with a motorcycle, and he was like, hey, he was real personable. He said, hey, jump on the bike, take a picture, boom, boom, boom. And I just liked his command presence. I saw that he was in a uniform. And prior to that, seeing cops in uniform, I was like, whoa, that's like an authoritative figure. It's a little intimidating. So when I saw that, I was intrigued that he was so pleasant, so cool. And on top of that, I always wanted to make a change, do something. I wanted to do something in my community. I wanted to leave some type of positive legacy. And I figured one of the best ways to do it is public service.
Wow. So most people at a really young age, like I've said in my prior videos, they literally don't know what they want to be. And it's really special that you that young were able to figure out, and that was a really good experience too. I would love an officer to come up to me on a motorcycle and be like, hey, you want to take pictures? That would really persuade me in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're so lucky for that. I wish.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of officers where you live in your municipality that do it, but we don't see it as much. And that's what we're trying to do, is bring that to the forefront more.
Right. I agree. Okay, officer. So my second question to you would be, do you feel as if, or do you think that showing violent interactions on the news or media is helpful or harmful to our society?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Do you think that showing violent police community interactions on the news or media is helpful or harmful to our society?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's mostly harmful, right? Because the narrative that it creates is a negative narrative towards law enforcement. It creates kind of a bias narrative as well, because we don't get the same amount of positive coverage for law enforcement. So if there was a balance, then I would say it's even, it's neutral. But being that we predominantly see negative coverage on law enforcement throughout the nation, I feel that it's a bad thing, and it gives people the misconception that cops are just bad.
Right.
All cops are bad.
Right. No, I agree. Seeing that all the time, especially younger kids, they get, because you teach something in a household, you see it. Like if you only, teach one way, they're never going to see it another way.
Absolutely.
I think it also brings not attention, but people watch the news more. You know what I mean? Because they it's sort of like drama, and they
Absolutely. And that's, I'm so glad you're so intelligent for saying that, because it is. We all know that controversy sells, right? And that's what the media is driven. That's their driving engine, is controversy. And it's, it's not as appealing if it's something positive, right? And if an officer, I'm not protecting bad cops, but for all the good cops out there, right? There's about 800,000 cops in this nation. And the overwhelming amount of cops that are good in this nation is overwhelming, to say the least, right? But we don't get the coverage, like I said before. And I just feel like we have to up that a little more. We have to get a little more coverage on cops, and cops that have social media outlets use it for the right intentions to get those messages out there.
Right. I agree, because it can be overbearing sometimes. You know what I mean? You've got really good officers who are pushing, and they're showing is really negative interactions. Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. I just wanted to know where your head was at on that. I knew it'd probably be a very wonderful answer, as it was.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So my third question to you, officer, would be, do you spend time in your community when you're off duty that you help to protect and serve?
Absolutely. I feel that this job, when we take the oath, we take an oath to serve and protect our community, and it's 24/7 thing, right? So even when we're off duty, civilians, what I mean by civilians, people that aren't officers, they see us in the street and they'll address us. Hey, Officer Rivero, Bookem, how you doing? So I feel that our job never stops. And I feel that most of the work that I've accomplished in regards to community outreach has been more effective when it's done off duty, right? Because people see me outside of the element of an authoritative figure.
Right.
They see me as Danny, Officer Rivera. They see me as Bookem, as somebody that they can relate to, see me out of uniform, interact with them. And I just feel like that brings a little more intimacy towards the relationship between cops and community.
Right. Because, I know a lot of kids they'll go out and they'll see their teacher outside of school, and they're like, what are you doing outside of the classroom? And, my teacher's like, I'm a human too. I go to the store, I go shopping. So it's really nice to see that you're in the community and not just, always in the community wearing your badge, because a lot of kids will get that recognition. And plus they'll feel more relatable.
Absolutely. Can I add to that? I'm so sorry I got to add to that, right? Also, for the most part, cops see people at their worst, right? We go to situations, we go to calls for service. When I say calls for service, for anyone that's watching, what we mean by that is when we get called, when someone calls 911, they reach out to the police department, we respond to whatever the call is. So 9 out of 10 times we respond to a call and we see people at their worst. So I think it's paramount for us to be out there in good times, see them outside of the calls for service and really interact with them. And that shows us to be human. It humanizes police officers.
I agree. A lot of people just going into a career field don't 100% know that either. Because,
Exactly.
we all have really bad days. So, and of course, you call 911 when there's like a real emergency. So you're going to be in fight or flight mode. Your senses are heightened and everything, So on both ends. So
Absolutely.
So my fourth question to you, officer, would be, what are some things in your opinion that symbolize a bad officer?
I think a bad officer is one that uses his or her badge as a tool of oppression, as a bullying tool, an officer that takes the job solely for a paycheck and doesn't see the compassionate side of what being an officer should be. Now, granted, I'm not knocking anyone that goes to work, does their job, goes home. Not everybody is kumbaya, goes out, shakes hands, kisses babies, But I just believe that, a good officer is one that serves and protects. And I think a lot of times we forget about the service part of it. Serving is giving unto others of yourself, right? And sometimes it calls for us to do it in uncomfortable moments and unselfishly. So anybody that does the job solely to be aggressive, solely to be a bully, and does it for anything outside of truly doing it for their community, they're a bad cop.
That's a great answer, and that's with anything. I have some, I play basketball. I go to VHS. I go to VR High here in Florida. Nice. And, I play basketball, not just there, when at my prior school, some of these girls were just like, I just play basketball because, it's fun. And that's fine. You know what I mean? But it's like a team effort. You know what I mean? One person goes down, whole team goes down. It's like,
absolutely,
play for fun, put in the work, things like that. So at least you maintain, you know what I mean? So
absolutely,
I understand where you're coming from. And also I think that goes back to what I was asking you about the media, because some people will see one bad officer do something and then they'll start assuming that all the officers, you know what I mean, look and act and think that way. I don't know how to explain it other than being on a team. Playing sports has really helped me see that. You know what I mean? I think that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the same concept with law enforcement, but I got a question for you. Have you ever met any bad cops in your neighborhood?
No, I haven't met any bad officers. When I used to live in Port St. John, I did have some probably racially biased officers that I've met. I mean, I really wouldn't say that makes you a bad officer. I just think that's something that you've been taught. That's something outside of your uniform that just so happens to spill over. But other than that, I have not met.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You being a young lady of color to see it in that perspective. And it's ironic. It's ironic that I just believe that, yes, racism is taught, but I also believe that as an officer, when you take the oath, right, to serve and protect, it does say serve and protect all and treat all fairly, right?
Right.
So when that trickles over, because I'm pretty sure officers are asked in the oral board when they go for the interview, they asked, how do you feel working with people of different cultures, ethnicities, right?
Really?
And 9 out of 10 of these officers are going to say, well, I feel comfortable working with blacks and Hispanics. But then when they get on the job, they use it as a way to show that racism that they have within them. So, yes, I gotta say, Kairi, I gotta disagree. Those are bad cops. If they treated you bad because of your skin color and they had biases towards you because of your skin color, then they're bad cops. We got to call them for what they are.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate that. But I agree. I agree. Because I can't really be mad. I mean, I guess I can see where you're coming from, of course. Where I was coming from was I can't really be upset because it's taught, like you were saying, it's taught. So it's it's sort of as if they just don't know any better,
Exactly.
And I want to be angry and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think you know any better. So I try not to, but if you're going to ask me from a bias standpoint without using my head, yes. I agree. So my fifth question to you, officer, would be, that I see that you have a project called the Bridges Project. Can you please explain to me how much time you spend on it, like your own time putting into it, and like what it is? Will you explain it to me?
Sometimes my wife, yes, of course. Sometimes my wife says, "Oh man, it seems like you have 30 hours in a day." Because I'm so passionate about the project. I started it in 2015, but when I became an officer in 2005, I knew that I wanted to be heavily involved in the community, but it took me a long time to build up the bravery to be a rapper and a cop, right? Because when you're a rapper and a cop in a paramilitary organization, what I mean by paramilitary is sub-military. You're not the military, but you're an organization that functions very similarly to the military. It's frowned upon for some reason. It's frowned upon, right? Because let's be honest, hip hop is surrounded by negativity. The reason why I'm mentioning hip hop right off Jump Street is because I use rap music and the culture of hip hop as the driving force behind Bridges to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. So I work in the inner city, right? Very diverse, one of the biggest diverse areas in the nation, Hudson County. And I feel the best way to relate to the people of my community is to be involved in that hip hop culture and know what the hip hop culture is. And I've done music since I was a little kid. So yes, Bridges is predicated on music, hip hop, building bridges through music, but also mentoring, showing kids that yes, you could be involved in music. Rap isn't the only way. You could do videography, you could do photography, management, engineering. There's other ways, and you could be professional. You don't have to be a gangbanger.
Right.
You don't have to be, you don't have to be a certain type of person to be a rapper. You can be whoever you want to be, as long as you're doing it positively and for a good cause.
I agree. And, most kids, being that, we're kids, our attention span is just short anyways.
Yeah.
It comes with being a teen, a kid, that's a amazing way to get our attention. You know what I mean? Something that keeps us entertained, especially because a lot of rap music nowadays can send a lot of negative messages.
Yes.
If put in the wrong hands of the wielder. But a lot of rap music can also tell stories through, song. And I really like that you're allowing these kids to be able to listen to the instrumental and being able to listen to the lyrics, because you're pumping positivity. And I think that's really needed because, a lot of us are always plugged in and it's like, you know what I mean? It's not
absolutely,
really, right.
Absolutely. And also Kairi, just to elaborate on that. I come from a volatile background. I come from the inner city. I come from a broken home. My father, my biological father was never there for me. I know who he is, but I didn't have that relationship with him. I jumped house to house. I was in the streets. I lived at one point. I dropped out of high school at the age of 16. I was a vagabond, jumping house to house, closing the garden. So I know the struggles of a lot of the kids in the inner city. I know a lot of it, and I understand it. So for me, it comes from a different place. It comes from a place of understanding, so I'm very passionate about it.
Right. Now, do your fellow officers listen to your music? Do they like your music?
Yes and no. You got some officers, like I stated before. There's some officers that don't agree with it. They're not vocal about it, right? But that's with anything in life. You're gonna get some people that like it, some people that don't.
Right.
But it's okay, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, thank God, I do get the support. I get support from colleagues, and it feels good when you do get that support.
That's great. I'm glad, because, going into your work environment, you need that. You know what I mean? You don't want it to be like negativity all day.
Exactly. Bad vibes.
So my sixth question to you, officer, would be, have you ever tried making connections? Well, I think you answered it, but it was going to be, I'll ask it anyways. Have you ever tried making connections with these young men and women of color other ways than, music? And you did. You said photography. Yeah. Yes, that's great.
I haven't done photography, but I did do a music video with a kid, Will. His rap name is Spaz. He's from Jersey City. He comes from a very, very rough area. And I went to the schools, and thankfully to Lynette Donardo, who's a social worker for the schools. She got my program in there, and I was working with high-risk kids that were in high school. And I made a promise. I said, listen, if you guys could write a song, positive, no curses, we'll do a whole rap video. And we actually were able to accomplish that with one of the kids. So we did a whole rap video. So yes, I took them to the studio. So, and there's numerous times, spending time with them and just showing them, kind of like a big brother type of thing,
Right. I want to rap. I want to write rap music with an officer. Like, I want to sit.
Let's do it.
Amazing.
Let's do
it. Wow. I imagine that. Like, I just imagine like every educator being like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Going out of their way, then, just sticking to the books. It's like, you're in school. This is what you're supposed to learn. I had one teacher like that, Mr. Barry. He's my sophomore AP history teacher. And literally every day it was something new. He teaches the criteria, and then he would just be like, all right, guys, we're going to watch this. And how does this pertain? He would teach us history and like real world issues that we're growing up in. You know what I mean? He was like going beyond. So
absolutely. There's a lot of people that do that. And shout to the teachers. Listen, the teachers have it rough, right? Because a lot of times teachers have to be social workers, they have to be parents, right? They have to be, guidance counselors, so shout to them. But I got a follow-up for you. Do you think the kids are frustrated in your area or in your school, or kids in general are frustrated and need outlets outside of their environment?
Well, if you want me to be demographically correct and honest with you, Vieira High does have a lot of students of minority, yes, people of color. Are we heard as much? I'm going to tell you no. Just being that a lot of them are Caucasian, and I'm not saying that, they don't need outlets, because it's everybody, you know what I mean? But specifically the struggle and things that you're talking about, most definitely can cause a Caucasian. I'm everywhere today. My brain's going a million miles a minute. Can go through, but we don't really get like students or we don't get mentors like that step up and take the mantle and to take kids, white, black, Asian in and be able to give them outlets like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, do you think absolutely it does make sense, but it doesn't make sense because it should be happening. And my thing to you is, do you think that cops would play a major role in doing that and going in getting into these schools and being those mentors and using their gifts and talents to be mentors?
Well, yes, most definitely, because you guys, it's like protecting and serving. I feel like it's such a vague term. There's so much gray area. A lot of people get like caught up tunnel vision and like, I've got to uphold the law and everything like that, but you're protecting and serving your community too. There's kids out here, go outside, play basketball with them, things like that. Their mental health, it matters. You know what I mean? Small things like that. So I most definitely think officers could step up and to the plate and help some of these kids who really do need outlets.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely. I agree.
So officer, my 7th question to you would be, do you think that you and other fellow police officers can focus on uplifting young women of color?
Yes, but I'm just going to say something. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Absolutely. It's just hard for a male officer to do so because of our position in law enforcement, and especially if they're underage or even if they're above age, it could be a gray area in regards to, our job and our job function and our SOPs, rules and regulations, whatever. SOPs means standard operating procedures for anyone that doesn't know. So yes, there's always a way, and there's many female officers out there and male officers that could be mentors to female officers of color. I'm sorry, female civilians of color. Absolutely. And I said this one time to one of my kids. I said, it's ironic that they call the hood the mud, right? You ever heard that term?
Yes.
I come from the mud. I come from the mud, right? So it's ironic because diamonds come from the ground. They come from we could say the mud, right?
Uh,
And I always say, you know, kids from the inner city, which is sad to say, but for the most part are kids of color, minorities, Latino, blacks. They're diamonds in the rough. We just got to find them. We got to extract them. We got to polish them off, and we got to, you know, and teach them and show them. And like yourself, 17 years old, future activist, you know, very intelligent.
Thank
Uh,
you.
they're gonna rise up like you and be those diamonds that we're gonna see shining. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Absolutely.
So, officer, my 8th question to you would be, what is the worst thing that you have, like a call you've responded to or that you have encountered on duty?
Wow. So I think the one that impacted me the most was one time I was on a car stop in West New York, New Jersey. And I was at the side of my vehicle about to enter into my car, and a car pulls up next to me, and the lady in the back seat is frantic, screaming in Spanish, and she's with another lady, and they're holding a baby that's in their pamper. The baby is in a pamper, and the woman is screaming, you know, my baby can't breathe, my baby can't breathe. My heart dropped, right? So in law enforcement, we have something called tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is when, you know, everything gets small and you kind of like, you know, you kind of focus on this one thing and you lose sight of everything else. And I grabbed the baby. We're taught training how to perform CPR on children, adults, obviously infants, newborns. And I started to do what I learned. And when I tell you, it was the scariest moment as a father, scariest moment in my life, because as I'm performing CPR, I wasn't doing mouth to mouth. I was doing chest compressions and stuff. And as I'm doing it, I could just remember thinking like, please don't die. Please don't die. Please don't die. By the grace of God, the baby was 2-month-old, a boy, a male. And ambulance was called. The baby survived. All right. The baby did stop breathing, but the baby did start crying out, which is a good sign, means their airways are opened up. So that's got to be to me, the most impacting call that I've ever had, because to me that was like very, very close to home.
Right. Now, you mentioned as a father, so how did that make you feel pertaining to your own children? You know what I mean? Were you like seeing as if this was like your kid? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to help this mom out as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what's going through your head as a father? Do you mind like going more in depth with that?
Absolutely not. Like I said, I was in a daze, to be honest. Like I knew, they say muscle memory when you do something, it just comes into play, and I'm doing what I'm doing. But at the same time, yes, in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, God, how would I feel if this baby dies in my arms? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I remember holding my kids 2 months old, and I knew it was abnormal for the baby to be acting the way it was acting or not acting the way it was acting. So yes, it was a very stressful moment, very, very stressful moment for me.
Now, having this situation happen to you, which I'm so glad the baby was able to, his trachea, my fault, was able to open up and you guys were able to resuscitate. Hopefully the baby was not dead, but how does situations like that help you like perceive everything now, and how does it like help you push? Because you seem to went through like that was traumatic. You know what I mean? I felt you listening to that. So what causes you to keep going? You know what I mean? Knowing you could encounter things like that on the way.
Yeah. So it's a tough situation. No officer wants to go through anything like that, right? Like I stated before, we see people at their worst, and we have to fight through these stressful moments every day. Every day, it's a recurring event for the most part. But the way that I get through it is faith. I'm a big believer in God, and I'm not shy about saying it. I believe in God, and I just believe that everything happens for a reason, and God gives his strongest or his hardest tribulations to his strongest people. So that's the outlook that I keep, that I try to keep. And also, I find it rewarding when you're able to help somebody. So for me, it's just all about those things. Like I'm able to say later on in life, like, wow, I actually was able to save someone's life. So for me, those things keep me going, and they keep me motivated to keep being and doing what I'm doing as a law enforcement officer.
Right. It's amazing how you can take that really scary experience and throw it forward and be like, I got this. You know what I mean? It's really great how you were able to just, because a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people I know, because my mom's in the medical field and she'll tell me stories, and a lot of people are like, nope, nope, nope. Like the first time they're like, can't do it. You know what I mean? So you are most definitely an anomaly, and that's wonderful, because a lot of people cannot. A lot of people can't. So power to you.
Yeah, listen, Kairi, you might think I'm an anomaly, and I appreciate that, what you're saying about me, but there's over 800,000 cops in the United States alone. The overwhelming amount of cops that are and act this way, or even better than what I do, or do even more than what I do, is, forget about it. It's incredible. So I'm not an anomaly. It's just that you're dealing with, you're seeing me and you're talking to me, and it's real to you. But I can tell you firsthand that there are thousands upon thousands of great cops out there.
That's good. I hope that can become like in the light more. I hope it will be put out there more.
Absolutely.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
So my 9th question to you, officer, would be, are you familiar with the term white fragility? If so, what are your opinions on it? And if not, then I can further explain if you would like me to.
I'm not familiar.
Okay. So I can give you an example. So basically, white fragility is sort of like, there's no like real definition for it. I mean, there is a real definition for it, but it's a very like vague definition. So in our education systems, people of color are taught that their history started at slavery here in America. So basically you jump into everything, and then you learn slavery in America. So people of color normally see that their history started with trauma. Basically, white fragility would be them not wanting to change the education system so that people of color could learn their roots further, because if they were able to tell their side of the story, the picture that has been painted of the Caucasian version may be distilled or it may be destroyed, and it causes them to have to own up to their actions. So it's basically discomfort within like a whole race setting. It's sort of like a subcategory to white supremacy.
That's deep. I never knew about that. But yes, in history class, you are absolutely correct. There's way more history than what we learn. We all can agree to that, right? They teach us what they want to teach us. So
right.
Absolutely.
That's cool. That's cool. I go into that a lot, and I was like, oh, I wonder if, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people aren't familiar with it. Because, my generation, I don't know if you've heard the term, but my generation calls them Karens, right? So basically,
the privileged, right?
So basically, yeah, it's exactly like that. You see something, you make bias towards it, and you're teaching one way, and then people who are like, that's not how it is. And, the racial biases and prejudices that are instilled, it's discomforting for them to learn. So they block it off. So, so my 10th question to you, officer, would be, what personally has gone on in your whole life that makes you want to create change? Like, why do you want to experience the world the way you are? You know what I mean? What drives you to want to do it? Trauma.
So you just spoke about trauma, right? And I read in a book, the book was called Emotional Intelligence. And in the book, the author talks about trauma, and that people that suffer trauma often want to get involved in some type of career that involves helping people overcome their traumas. So trauma isn't always physical. It could be emotional, right? Spiritual in some cases. For me, it was more emotional, right? Went through, as I told you before, I didn't think I received the love that I was trying to get as a kid. Grew up around alcoholism, verbal abuse, lack of love. So the trauma that I faced made me sensitive to people that suffered that type of trauma. So I felt like if I could be somebody, if I could be, a shoulder for somebody to lean on, then I want to be that person. I want to be able to help people, get them out of the trenches.
No, that's amazing from where you were to where you are now. Congratulations. A lot of people aren't 100% aware about their emotional intelligence because it's just something that's, I feel as society, it's sort of just, pushed aside. So I know a lot of people who've gone through things as, you've mentioned, and they're like, I didn't go through a lot of physical trauma, but, growing up in a house with alcoholism and domestic violence and not enough nurturing and care from your parents, hey, I love you too. You know what I mean? Hugs, kisses. It's rough. You know what I mean? Even on adults. So I 100%.
Absolutely.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for everything you're accomplishing.
To keep pushing yourself. So
thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that was my 10th question, officer. Thank you for asking or, sitting here and letting me ask you these questions. You answered them like a boss.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, before we get into you asking me 10 questions, I would like to give a word from our sponsors. So thank you to the Birdie Eco School, Exceed Concierge, Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central Florida, Ben & Jerry's, and Central State Bank. Thank you guys so much for making this possible.
Gracias.
All right, Officer Bookem, I am ready.
Okay, Kairi, how are you?
I'm good.
I felt like I had to throw that in there. You can't just jump into question one. All right. So my first question for you is, what is your stance on Colin Kaepernick?
Great question. My stance on Colin Kaepernick. My cousin actually went to the military. He went to the Army. So even he, as a veteran, just throwing this out there, was like, it's more respectable to kneel anyways. I agree that with everything, there's so much, I cannot believe that they were like, no, you can no longer play in the NFL and the whole thing down. He lost his whole career due to the fact that he spoke out on something that may not have been politically correct, in the past. You know what I mean? But he was standing for change, and so he kneeled. And we saw problems today with kneeling. I feel he was 100% in the right, especially because of everything that was going on with not just politics, but just in the world in general. I felt like it was an amazing statement, and it said a lot, and there's change in that. And I think people got scared, white fragility, if I want to use that term, and they just shut the idea down. So I 100% stand with Colin Kaepernick.
Okay. Let me ask you a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
Do you think, in retrospect, that his motivation was racially motivated or financially motivated? Because I'm gonna tell you why I say that, or ask you that. I'm sorry, because it is statistically proven that he was having one of the worst times of his career. Okay, so in your opinion, do you think it was really racially motivated, or maybe subconsciously financially motivated as well to help his brand?
Well, I can tell you that as a Black male, having a steady career without any biases being hired is already hard in and of itself in America. So, I don't think he would have put his job on the line, just, kneel and be like, hey, you know what I mean? I think he could only put up that act for so long. I feel like he was tired. You know what I mean? Because I know it's really draining to be a person of color and constantly having to explain yourself and constantly seeing the negative things that go on in your environment. And I think he really was just fed up. And, he was like, I'm going to make a statement, good or bad. You know what I mean? He like, nobody would hire him after that, and now they're talking about putting him in the Hall of Fame. So it took a few years. But while we're on this question, what is your stance back? Because now I'm interested. I'd like to know.
So I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I'm a minority. I'm Puerto Rican, but I feel in my heart that his motivation may slightly been racial, but mostly financial and for his brand, and to kind of put some light on his situation. And the reason why I say that, because social injustice was occurring way before he started kneeling. He had his whole career. He went to the Super Bowl. He had all these opportunities when his stage was set, when he had a larger platform to really state how he felt about, social racism and all that. I just feel like, why choose that moment when you're on a decline and then kind of shed the light on you? And then, I'm going to bring up Chicago, and, kids are getting killed, black kids are getting killed. There was, 50 shootings in 1 week. 3 babies were killed in the west side of Chicago 2 months ago. One of the kids being 1 year old. Where was he? So these are the issues that I have,
Right.
So for me, I just feel deep down inside that I respect him for standing up for what he believes in, but I just feel like a lot of it was financially motivated.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, I can't argue with you. I don't think either of us are wrong. You know what I mean? I can most definitely see where you're coming from, because I know I tell my dad a lot of the times, I'm like, hey, like, why are these celebrities saying something now? You had so much time to, and sometimes, going off of what you said, it makes me feel like I'm a trend. Makes me feel like my skin color is a trend. Makes me feel like, another black man killed. Everybody, let's go make shirts out of his last words and march on the street because it's what we do. You know what I mean? Like
clout chasing. Chasing.
Yeah. Yes. Social media does a terrible job. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It goes on behind the scenes. Email these congresswomen and congressmen and push for change in these laws. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it has been spun in a very negative light. So I can most definitely see where you're coming from.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I see where you're coming from. 100%. Listen, anybody that's willing to step outside the box and do something that's uncomfortable and unpopular at the moment because they truly believe in it, I kudos to them, and I give them nothing but the respect, the utmost respect, but I just always look at, sometimes people may have ulterior motives.
Right.
Okay. That was a good one. Your response was a good one.
Thank you.
So here you go. Question number 2. When you first see an officer, what is your initial first thought when you first see an officer?
To be honest with you, probably all the killings that go on. My first thought is my skin color. Like automatically, like off the bat, I'm like, I'm black. Holy crap. You know what I mean? I'm like, so I start panicking. I'm like, okay, wait, don't panic. Because if you panic, you're in fight or flight. It's like a lot of things go on, and he might think you're being aggressive, plus being a young woman of color. So I speak, and it's like people get rattled because they're like, you're eloquently spoken. And I'm like, so my first initial thought is probably like, should I get on the phone with my mom? Like, even if I'm driving down the highway and he's behind or in front of me, I'm like, do I call my parents, just in case? Let's say I get pulled over. It's like, I don't want to have to reach for my phone and be like, even though I know I can't, hey, I'm a minor, I'm going to call my mom and put her on the phone. It just, I'm scared, honestly. So
that's interesting. Now, do you feel the same way if, regardless of the race, ethnicity, or skin color of the officer, do you feel the same way if it's a black officer, if it's a female officer? Do you get the same first thought?
Yes. Believe it or not, I know this is a little biased, but what you were going based off of what you were saying earlier, there are a lot of even Black men who are older, who are not educated on a lot of things that go on, and they have been raised with racial biases. Maybe geographically they grew up around an area where there was predominantly white males and white women. You know what I mean? So all you're hearing is this. So the bias can be instilled in anyone. You know what I mean? So when I see, I might have like a little bit of like oh, he's gonna understand, or oh, she's gonna understand. But a lot of it is still fear, because I'm like, I see the badge and I'm like, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? I know that's sad. I'm sorry that you're an officer, and I'm telling you that.
No. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Trust me, I get it. Yeah, I know. I could get your sentiment, and I just think a lot of it has to do with social media. Going back to social media, I just feel a lot of the way kids feel nowadays, and a lot of the way they see things is because of what they see on these social media outlets, and not as to what they see firsthand in their communities. I'm not defending any bad cops. Once again, I do not stand with them, but I just think a lot of it has to play with the visuals that you're presented with, right?
Right.
How do you feel about that? Do you think a lot of it, like if you had no social media, if you weren't privy to any Facebook, Instagram, nothing, do you think you would feel the same way about cops?
Probably. I don't think I would feel the same in such way as being scared when I did see them. But like, if I was going to have interactions just in general and the cop was still biased or something like that, then I'm probably going to still form an opinion. I don't think it would be as much of like clout chasing as you were saying, you know what I mean? I think it would be a lot easier if it wasn't on social media, but I feel like it would be harder at the same time, because like you have to be aware of things like that. So it goes both ways.
And you know what? Absolutely. Because yes, bad cops would be able to hide more if there wasn't cameras, right? So it's good and it's bad at the same time, right?
Right.
All right. Question number 3. Do you know how many cops there are in the United States? And this is like a silly question, because I think I told you like 4 or 5 times throughout this conversation.
Wait, is it 800,000? Did you say 800,000?
Yes, around 800,000, approximately.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with approximately 800,000 officers.
More. Oh yeah, wow. So yeah, wow, 800,000. Yeah, so there might be more. Right? Who knows? There might be 800,001. Who knows, right? All right, you ready? Question number 4. What would you tell the generation following you about law enforcement?
Do you want my answer from a I'm sorry. Do you want my answer from a person of color, a young woman of color, or would you like my answer from the activist in me wanting to fight for change?
I just want your real answer. You were given a podium right now, and there's 50 kids that are 10 years old, and they're reaching that stage in life where they're gonna have they're gonna start realizing and start maturing. What would you tell them about law enforcement?
I would tell them that there are amazing officers out there. Like, there's amazing officers who day in and day out are doing everything that they possibly can to fight for the community, such as there's amazing people of color out there. There's amazing people out there doing everything they can every single day to fight for themselves, fight for the people around them. But I would also let them know that there are most definitely dangers in this world, and officers being, a young female of color, that's one of them to us. So I would let them know to be extremely aware of their surroundings. Just be cautious. So.
Okay. And when you tell them that, what specifically would you tell them to be cautious about?
I would tell them to educate themselves, because I would tell them to be cautious about the biases that have been instilled, what to look for, what is a red flag, what's not a red flag, you know what I mean? Because there's some officers you'll meet, which I've met, and they're like, hey, what's up, blah, blah, blah. Like, you like basketball, I like basketball, blah, blah, blah. We're going back and forth. But then, I've had my resource officer go, well, your hair, it's changing every day. When what type of crazy braids are you gonna get in your hair next? You know what I mean?
Is that a real story? They really told you?
It is a real story. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Just certain things. So
wow. That's crazy. All right. So on to question number 5. Do you believe a police officer can make an impact in the hip hop community?
Yes, I do believe a police officer can make an impact in the hip hop community. Now, depending on how you do it, that's up to the officer. Being that a lot of these communities, it's like, I think you're going to know where I'm coming from, because what you're describing, most of the kids in your community are minorities. It's like if social media interrupts like what you're trying to do, it can be extremely hard to get to these kids. You know what I mean? Because they're going to be in fear when you're like, no, it's fine. You know what I mean? So I think it takes a lot of effort. And
she said, yes, a cop could be a rapper.
Yes.
And this is coming from a 17-year-old intelligent Black female, right?
Thank you.
Listen, people, it can be done. Thank you. Thank you. That motivates me. And I'm grateful for you saying that, because it doesn't matter your job title. It doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, culture, your sexual preference. Music is a beautiful thing, and music brings people together. We all know that, right? So music has no color, right? Music has no career. So I'm glad you said that. I'm hyped. You know what I'm saying? And I would have yelled. I probably would have yelled. But my kids, I think they're over there chilling. If they hear me yelling, they're probably going to run over here and ruin the interview. But thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let me ask you a question. What's your favorite genre of music?
I don't really listen to rap music that much, especially. Well, hear me out. So,
what?
I do listen to rap. I like rap that sends a message, that tells a story. I like to listen to lyrics, and like nowadays, my rap, it's like very construed in a way that it's like programming these young kids. So it's like, so I like listening to old school Eminem, he's crazy, but like new school Eminem, he's really like, he's older, he's grown. So it's like, he spits a lot of knowledge. I also like Logic. I know a lot of like kids are like, oh, I don't like listening to Logic. I like him because, but my favorite genre has to be like alternative and pop. So I'm a big fan.
Nice. I like all types of genres. So that's good.
And MJ.
I listen to Amici, DJ Amici, and all that. I listen to
yeah.
EDM. I listen to EDM. Oh, I listen to all that. So, all right, question number 6. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So, 2 teenagers were recently shot in Brevard County in your state. What are your thoughts in regards to the shooting? Now, if you're not familiar with that shooting, it was 2 young kids, 18 and 17 years old. There was also a third passenger in the rear who wasn't injured. But are you familiar with that
yes.
story? So 2 kids were killed. How do you feel about that?
I feel as if a lot of people will try to make the story out to be something that it's not. Like when we first figured all of this out, of course, there was like an uproar. You know what I mean? Especially here in Brevard County, it was like, this stuff's going on in our own backyard. Like, what is going on? And a lot of people, once information started to get out, they were like, well, Kairi, you took, the boys' stance, how it was an illegal stop, and they weren't even in their designated area to be able to stop, and their lights weren't on, you know what I mean? And it was it was mistaken identity, you know what I mean? It was just something that was like, we think this is them, let's just go for it. Well, how do you feel now that they were criminals, that they were about that life? And I look at them and I go, so basically you're telling me that since that they were criminals, they deserve to die. They were put in an environment where all they had, you don't have enough mentors like you, to go out and teach these kids that there is something other than gangs and drugs and violence. I'm like, and you're going to sit here and tell me that a 16 and an 18-year-old, basically kids, it's okay that they died for an unreasonable reason because they were criminals, So a lot of people are spinning the narrative, I feel, as if it was wrong. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of good cops, like I'm saying, but I feel when a bad cop is spotted, they need to be held accountable, and that still hasn't happened. So.
Yeah. Wow. Good answer. So you, for all intensive purposes, feel that those kids should have never been shot.
They should have never been. No, they shouldn't have. We don't know what was going on in the video. You know, I mean, we do, but we don't at the same time. I just know that as a person of color, I understand. You know what I mean? Like, they were like, the kid was driving towards the officer. The officer was going to get killed. And I'm like, okay, well, the kids probably didn't even know they were getting pulled over. The officer's lights weren't on. These two officers get out of the car with their guns drawn. Me being a kid of color, I'm thinking maybe you're getting somebody behind me. Let me do a U-turn or something. You know what I mean? And then it's like,
I got you.
You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. From a law enforcement standpoint, I've done numerous car stops. And yes, a vehicle can be used as a deadly weapon to cause serious bodily injury, right? What I mean by that, what I mean by serious bodily injury is really hurt somebody, put them in the hospital, may cause death, right? So we all know that if a vehicle strikes you, in this case, I saw the video numerous times. I don't know if that was the case here.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I read different reports on it. They got a call for service of, a suspicious vehicle in the neighborhood, possibly involved in an armed robbery. They ended up finding 2 guns in the vehicle. Granted, I don't know if the kids were scared or they were genuinely trying to get away.
Right.
There's a lot of other things that we got to think about. We got to think about the general public. Right. They're driving in a reckless manner. Doesn't mean they deserve to get killed.
Right.
Does a pedestrian deserve to die because they're getting it? So this thing. So, I really don't like Monday night quarterbacking unless it's unless I have all the facts and it was like the George Floyd case impacted me. I was very upset about it. That was a murder. That was a cold-blooded murder. Right. And I was very vocal about it. But when I don't know the whole facts, I don't know what. There's been many times that we get something on social media, and we get things on social media, but then when we read up about it, we find out a lot of it was false. So that's why I don't want a Monday night quarterback, too much.
That's fine.
All right. Are you ready for question number 7?
Yes.
Okay. In your opinion, what makes a cop a good cop?
His morals. I'm sorry, but I think a lot of people will disagree because that's a very controversial topic too. Can you apply your feelings and morals into the workforce? I say yes. In a courtroom, they say no, but you have judges who send people to prison because they were child molesters. You think that judge wasn't sitting up there like, really, like, you're touching children, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean? So I think a good officer, it just, how he was raised, how he exceeds with what he's been taught. Does he use it for bad? Does he use it for good? You know what I mean? What drives him to want to be an officer in the first place? So
absolutely. Let me say something. I just gotta add a statement, right? A good officer is also one, in my opinion, is also one that is proactive in the community, getting guns off the street, getting drugs off the street, getting those serial killers, those pedophiles, right? Getting them off the street. Now, not every cop is, we might have morals. Cops might have morals, but you don't see them on the forefront as much as a cop that's active in social media or online, right? But there are cops that are passionate about their job, but they're passionate about getting these criminals, getting these people off the streets the right way, doing it the right way. So I think a lot of times people, I'm not saying you, Kairi, at all. I think you're intelligent enough to know that.
Thank you.
Good cops aren't only the ones that are like hugging and kissing everybody. They're in the neighborhood. They're giving out stickers and hats. We got good cops that are out here risking their lives, getting the evil people off the streets. So, we also have to applaud them as well because, those cops, and I'm a proactive cop, believe it or not. I love to get evil people off the street, and that's what I take pride in. You know what I'm saying? But I also have a love for my community. That's part of having love for your community, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. And treating people with respect. We got to treat people with respect, right?
Right.
So listen, I do a class, and in the class, in the beginning of the class, I have all the people come in, and I shake their hand, and some of them I give them a mean look, some of them I size them up. I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? Nice to meet you. Keep it moving. I don't tell them keep it moving, but I give everybody a different vibe, right?
Right.
What do you think I'm trying to do by doing that?
Well, I mean, that can be many different things. A lot of people might take it, well, they're probably going to judge you based off of how you greet them.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You nailed it. So that's what I'm saying. First impression as an officer, how you treat people, respect. Right. Going back to respect, how you approach people, how you talk to them, you treat them with respect. I believe respect is reciprocated. You show love and respect, you're going to get, there's a very low percentage of people that don't just blatantly don't have respect regardless of who you are. So, all right. Question number 8. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Do you think proactive community policing lowers crime rates?
Yes. I'm just going to say yes, based off of like being with Hey Blue and seeing everything. You know what I mean? All these officers that are always really engaged. I feel as if like, if you have a connection with someone, you're going to trust them a lot more than rather than you just, going in blind. Yeah. Statistically, I'm not sure. That's why I couldn't give you like a statistical answer. But yeah. I want to say yes, it does.
Okay.
If you're being nurturing to anyone and connecting with anyone is going to create a great relationship. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe that it does lower crime rates. I'll give you a statistic. Crime has dropped 41% in Camden, New Jersey from 2015 till now when they changed the administration. Camden was rated in 2009 the number one most dangerous city in the nation, Camden, New Jersey. So ever since they started the boots to the ground, which means officers walk in the neighborhood, talking to people, it's substantially lowered the crime rate. Proactive policing, it just means somebody that's proactively out there, somebody that's active in being a face that represents their department, a positive influence in the community, but someone that represents the badge.
Right.
Or the department, right? So that's what I mean by that. So when they started that whole initiative, the crime rates dropped substantially, 41%. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, question number 9. What types of men or women are best suited to be cops? And please clarify why.
What types of men and women are suitable to be cops?
Best suited to be cops.
Suited to be cops. I mean, if you want to be a cop, go be a cop. You know what I mean? If you're in the medical field and you just have a change of heart, because some people will go, well, he or she doesn't have a lot of background. Like, why would you even want to go into that? You know what I mean? I feel like anyone can do anything. I don't think there's like a specific right type of person, because a person who's super blunt, someone's going to meet someone else. An officer is going to meet a kid or someone else who's super blunt, and they're going to make a relationship because they're like, oh, he or she thinks like me. You know what I mean? Or someone with a high emotional intelligence who, is into or he's into their feelings, meet someone else like that, and they make a connection. You know what I mean? I don't think there's like a standard. So
that's a great answer. I got a follow-up for you though.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, do you think a cop that's from like a rural area, right? Like a rural area, can that person be effective in their policing approach in the inner cities of like New York or anywhere in the nation? Somebody that's never dealt with the inner city, do you think they'd be a good cop for the inner city?
I mean, I think they would need some training. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if I went out on the soccer field, I mean, I might be able to cross training. You know what I mean? I might be able to track the ball due to defense I've learned on the court, but you know what I mean? Like throwing it in from wherever. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it just like depends. But no, you're going to need a little more training because the environment's different.
Yeah. I mean, on my job, I've met cops that are from like out of the area, like they never grew up in the area, and good people, but they have a difficulty understanding the culture of some of the people in their inner city, right? They don't understand. They may perceive something to be disrespectful, right? To me, it can be a weakness until they learn the culture and learn the people and
Right.
learn the community. Obviously that's with anything you have to learn, right? You played basketball. I played ball too, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta learn the playbook, right? You gotta learn if a new coach comes in, you gotta learn what he teaches you. So, we all have to make adjustments, And those officers that got on the job that came from a different area, some of them did very well, some of them not so well. They get frustrated easily, they request to be transferred, they request to go to another department because, working the inner city is a rough area to work. It's heavily populated where I work, and a lot of times it's busy and people may have a certain type of way about themselves, and you can't deal with it. You're under a lot of stress,
Right.
All right, so I think we got to move on to the final question.
All right.
So the final question is, since you're a future civil rights activist, you already are an activist, who is your favorite civil rights activist and why?
There's so many of them.
All-time favorite and why?
Oh gosh. You have so many of them. You have Martin Luther King, you have Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, you have even the ones that you don't know about. Nat Turner, the ones they teach you about in school. Even though they were leading slave rebellions, they were fighting. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many great people. Harry T. Moore. There's so many. You know what I mean? Everybody who was familiar with Emmett Till. And
that story's crazy.
I know, everyone who was pushing for that, you know what I mean? There's so many great ones. I have Michelle Obama's book back here. She's I don't know, I want to say she's my favorite, but there's too many, you know what I mean? And they all have a place where they need to, they fit. So
absolutely. And I agree. There's so many. My favorite would have to be Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King started the civil rights movement in 1954, unfortunately passed away in 1968. But he was one of the greatest. And I think the reason his peaceful approach, his passionate approach and how he brought the people together, he's my favorite, hands down. So that's it. Oh man, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You are so intelligent.
Thank you.
Smart. You have an amazing smile. I want to know what your secret is to get your teeth so white. Because I got what kind of toothpaste? It's amazing.
I literally everyone's like, Kairi, your smile is golden. I'm like, I get up in the morning and I brush my teeth. That's literally, I use Crest. I have sensitive teeth to cold and sweets. So I don't.
Me too. Cold. I have sensitive
teeth.
Cold. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
God bless. Well, it was a pleasure. And I don't think we're done, right? We have to go.
We have our 21st question to do from the audience.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
So this one can be asked towards me, towards you, towards both of us. It just depends. So let's see. Oh, Officer Bookem, this one's for you. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement?
Ooh, that's a good one. Man. I think Black lives definitely matter. Does this organization, are they genuine in really believing Black lives matter when so many Black and brown lives are ruined throughout the nation and they have no voice? The fact that I believe Black Lives Matter is anti-cop, regardless of who the cop is, to me is bothersome. I'm not the biggest fan because I deal with a lot of blacks in my neighborhood, and I have a very close relationship with many blacks who aren't fans either, because they see the issues that they have in their communities and across the nation, and Chicago's one of them. We could go on and on. We could go on about, what happened to George Floyd, right? Minnesota, and 48 black-owned businesses were burnt to the ground, right? Nothing is being done for them. So, I just feel like Black lives can't only matter when, unfortunately, no one deserves to die, especially at the hands of police. All right. But it should not only matter when they're killed by police officers. Black lives should always matter.
Right, right. I have to disagree with you.
Okay.
Which is fine. I can see exactly where you're coming from and everything like that. I most definitely support the movement, although there are some people who you could call like extremists who tend to cause the movement to mean something more or less than, what it plainly is. You have the looting and the rioting, you know what I mean? And, being a person of color, from a standpoint, it's like, they already think that of us, to be honest with you. They already think you're thugs. They already think you're aggressive. Why go out? Why loot? Why riot? But at the same time, there's so much pain that goes into all of it. I also feel as if they could do a little more for the Black community of, in itself. But I also believe that has to do with it being, somewhat of a trend, especially to people who can never get their can get their hands on it. And they're like, hey, people of color, they're in pain. It's another thing to draw them in. So let's, scream Black Lives Matter and post it everywhere and try to get everybody to hop on, especially my generation. But I firmly believe that, I think it's a great movement. I think it's a lot of pain. I think it's a lot of culture that's being brought to light. I think it's only violent sometimes because people, again, are scared to hear what's really going on and what's, what it really was and how it's been covered up. So I think they can be a little less aggressive. Yes, I don't think it has to be that way. But when you're being held underwater, you feel like you're drowning, you're going to do anything you can to survive. So
I got you. I totally respect it. And listen, I don't have any hatred for anybody. Definitely not for BLM. Definitely not for BLM. But once again, I just can't support something that I don't see in the forefront of all Black and brown issues.
Right.
Should be vocal about everything. When 3 kids were killed in Chicago, was there a protest?
Right.
Kids were shot inside their home, right in the midst of Black Lives Matter rising up against the officers in Portland, right, in Oregon,
right,
in Minnesota, and no one, not a peep. A baby died.
Right.
Not even a post, not even nothing that we could go back and look at. Those type of things bother me.
Right.
Granted, we can't address every single thing across the nation. We can't.
Right.
We can't address everything. But I think Black Lives Matter should get together with the good cops and the good officers and say, listen, we're not anti-cop. We're anti-bad cops that are racially biased, like you said before, and we are against systematic racism, and we are for the cops that are against that as well.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because for a good cop that's out here trying to do their job, you got BLM that says, screw you, and then you got civilians that follow that movement and say, screw you, and then you got the cops that are out here trying to do the right thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I respect it. I definitely respect the sentiment. I respect the sentiment behind it. I respect the sentiment behind it. And I definitely support my Black and brown people, my minorities. I love people of all races, colors. It doesn't matter. I have Arabic friends, Asian friends, white, black, yellow. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But we all have to matter, and we all have to love each other and show each other support.
Right. I agree. Well, thank you, Officer Bookem, for coming on the show and talking to me. I really appreciate it. This was an amazing conversation.
I had a great time. Thank you so much. And it was an honor and a pleasure. And I know I'm going to see you doing big, 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 big things.
Thank you
Big
so
things.
much.
Just let me do your intro rap when you get big.
All right.
All right. God bless you.
Before you go, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
That would be, do we still have love for each other? Like, you still got love for me?
Always. Always.
Thank you, officer. I really appreciate it.
God bless you. It's my pleasure. God bless you. And stay safe and enjoy your holidays.
Thank you. All right, guys. So that's it for tonight. Thank you again to the sponsors, the Friday EST School, Exceed Concierge, Ben Jerry's, Central State Bank, Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central Florida. The next 21 Questions episode is on January 1st, 2021 with Officer Joel Allen of the NYPD. So I'll see you guys